Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica podcast partner AFRY. AFRY is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it. Today we have a great episode, a new project with two great students. It's a big pleasure for me to welcome you, Marvin and Torbjrn. Hey, and welcome to Urbanistica podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to have you here. You're our storytellers. I would love to know more about you. We can start with you, Marvin. How would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us about your background, your passion.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so my name is Marvin, and prior to my studies at KTH, I studied industrial design. And it took me 7 years before I actually got into the school. So I also had the opportunity to work at a few architectural practices, both here in Sweden and in the UK. And the projects I got to work on really allowed me to go into the details of things, and I can't think of anything more fun than just going into the nitty-gritty of it all.
That's amazing. What are you passionate about?
The details.
The details.
Really, the details. It's basically everything I do every single day is about the details.
That's awesome. Well, welcome and good to have you here, Torbjörn. Welcome to Urbanistica podcast. Tell us about yourself. Give us a highlight. Tell us about your passion.
Yes, thank you. My name is Torbjörn Winroth, and I come from a background of working as a chef. I did that for 7 years before I sort of saddled again into the seat of architecture. And I did my bachelor's up in Umeå for 3 years, and then I did an internship year here in Stockholm, and now I'm doing my master's here at KTH. My passion is really, I want to work with genuine architecture, architecture that feels like this could have been here for 1,000 years, or that's the aim, the feel of it, and I think it fits really well in this studio that we're in terms of that it's, it has to be natural somehow for it to be genuine. And we work a lot with that right now.
That's amazing. It will be really interesting to explore that during our talk. And Marvin, in this studio, you were divided into groups with different focus areas. So what has been your focus? And tell us about the group. How many are you?
Yeah, sure. So we are a group of 3 people, me, Torbjrn, and Ida. And we got the part where we're researching things related to Stockholm's water bodies. So this can include everything from the topography to the seabed material, the position of our outlets, and even the shipwrecks we have. And last but not least, the water's chemical status, and just to get down and see how polluted or how bad are they, or how good.
Yeah, but the focus area is in Stockholm, right?
Yes, the focus area is in Stockholm.
Yeah, and Torbjrn, you started with the analysis, gathering data. So you start doing a map analysis. What did you discover there?
Yeah, well, as he said, we looked into a lot of different layers of the waters, and I think what's most striking to us in this mapping is that if you look at the water, the chemical balance of the waters on the municipality's website, for instance, you will find that almost all of the water bodies are going to be marked as red because they're above the chemical threshold. that the municipality like to see. And if we look into the actual numbers of it all, then we find that there are 7 chemicals that they measure, and that almost all of them are well below the threshold values, so they're perfectly fine. But then we have this one chemical that is called PFOS, which is this organic substance that has a really strong molecular bond. It's found in fire retardants and such, and that's well above the threshold value. So we have this one polluter that marks the whole area red, sort of, and that's quite interesting. So this is the PFOS is something that we need to work with.
And very interesting. Like, so like an overall picture, are we like doing good or bad?
I think we actually are doing really good. It's just in terms of, we can always make it better. And if we follow the threshold values and the way that they have made this chemical status mapping, then it doesn't look good according to that. But I would say that we're doing good. Yeah,
good to hear that. And Marvin, looking back historically, like how was the relationship between human practices and the landscape in relation to your topic?
Yeah, it was very different back then. So just looking back, say 200 years ago, not many of us lived in the city, and the streets and the water was basically where you dumped every garbage you had in your house. And obviously that's not a good thing, and it led to many people dying. And in the 1900s, when more people moved into the city, at least we sort of got together and fixed a solution for the streets. So we got our first garbage station in the 1900s, and but the water body is still sort of seen as a big trash can, if you will. We even educated people as late as like the 1960s on how to dispose of waste in water. And we even read on about a tradition of when you were cleaning in the winter, you took out all your garbage and then you put it on the ice, and then you sort of washed all this melt when the summer came.
So like if you compare it with today, what insights does it give?
Yeah, like generally speaking, we have been reacting to the problems as they like arise. To some extent, I think we're still doing that today, but we have, of course, learned from those mistakes. But we are doing other mistakes now that we sort of look back at what we did 50 years ago. We are doing other things that probably in another 50 years we will look back and say, how could they dump all the snow, dirty snow into the water instead? So yeah, it's we need to start getting a bit more proactive.
And I'm actually like interested in curious to know, how do you imagine the future, like, and also why?
Yeah, maybe I can. I think, like just as Marvin just said, that we have been sort of reacting to issues after they happen, but in the future, I think we're gonna tip the scale even more to being able to see into the future somehow, to react before it happens, and I think that can happen both with in terms of using new technologies and working the political spectrum of it all. But I think what we've sort of realized during this semester is also that we have a lot of natural tools. We can work inside of an ecosystem to do this as well. So it doesn't need to be highly technical to clean the waters around our cities.
Doing smart solutions not only about like technology and high tech, could be like already in the nature, right?
Absolutely, and it's a matter of understanding the ecosystem, I guess. I mean, a lot of the technical functions of cleaning the water, for instance, they're almost acting like this, working like a pacemaker in the nature. You know, it's something separate than the actual nature itself.
Yeah, super interesting. Marvin, how do you imagine the future?
Yeah, I've always been sort of hoping that we go back to a way of building like we did in the let's say 80s and so on, before all of these fake materials really took a hold of everything that we do and produce. Use the genuine materials for things. I believe we sort of have to go back to that and stick with it, because just looking at a lot of today's buildings doesn't look like they would last, like some of the older buildings that we probably barely know how to build anymore because we have sort of lost that knowledge. We need to take that back and yeah.
What have you chosen to move forward with in your design project in this studio?
Yeah, so we have chosen to work on different things. Some are working in groups and some are working by themselves. I'm working by myself I'm trying to research a way to deal with the stormwater and the pollution near a hard edge, and doing so in a way that it also can help increase wildlife and just the overall quality of the place. So trying to not be too technical about it, but sort of use what nature already do so well and apply it to the place, and hopefully create a nice place to be in. And I'm using Klara Sjö and Klarastrandsleden as a example.
Yeah, can you like share with us some of like the design tricks or aspect that you did in order to achieve the result that you're planning to?
Yeah, sure. I'm using a wetland design that can basically help filter out the pollutions coming from the road. So before it enters the open water, it goes through this sort of filtration system that filters out most of the bad stuff, really, and leaves us with a cleaner water. And that in turn will help to get back some of the amphibians lost to the place.
Yeah, and like, are human able to be there, like on this layer that gonna filtrate, or no? It's gonna be like toxic, or
no, you can be there. In my proposal, you can't, however, because it's still a very noisy and sort of tragic infrastructural road and train track system. So in order to be there, like one could of course argue about like overdecking the whole place, but that's a whole different. I'm using it more as a, I guess you could call it a facade. So if you're on the south side, you have something nice to look at instead of with all these cars pushing by and making some loud noise. It also works as like a noise pollution barrier.
Yeah. So if we say like if the existing train tracks will not be there, then human are able to be on this layer, right?
Yes. Then you could make a like a bridge out in the water that you could walk among the vegetation and everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really interesting. And Torbjrn, what have you chosen to move forward in your design project?
Yeah, I work in a group with 2 other people in the class, and we worked with Gärdet, actually. Or actually, we worked with the green connection between Djurgårdsbrunnsviken and Brunnsviken. And So this is a way of making it possible for animals to move between these two areas, even though there's urban environments in the middle of that. So that's the overall strategy. But in this, we also work with the stormwater, just as Marvin does, and we try to clean the Djurgårdsbrunnsviken, which is highly eutrophic today. So it doesn't have a lot of life going on in this the seabed waters of it. And we do that by cleaning the storm water that comes from the hard surfaces surrounding Gärdet, and also introducing a wetland actually as sort of a cleansing mechanism for this. I'm working with some bioretention beds as well further up in Gärdet. And this is also, we get inspiration from, for instance, Rålambshovsparken, where they have already built these sort of natural bioretention beds where they use different kinds of gravel and sand to filter out pollutants from the stormwater that comes from the hard surfaces.
And Torbjörn, now I have a question about how did you learn all this stuff about the plants, the filtration and so on? Because architects work usually with material, hard surfaces. How did you get this knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely due to this course that we're having now, where we had a very extensive research period, me and Marvin and Ida. And looking into the water quality, we studied Rålambshovsparken quite closely. And during this, we read a couple of dissertations and papers on handling stormwater. Instead of just releasing it out into the waters around us, how can we filter it and be a part of this natural ecosystem that usually takes place.
Very interesting. And during this course, this studio, you had also many external, professionals from municipality, industry, expert within different fields. So how has it affected your work or your view of the architect?
Yeah. Well, I think the view of the architect has changed in the way that it's clear to me now that we are we're working to propose projects to both the municipality, but to others as well. It's not just about, drawing buildings that we have designed. It's also about, proposing new solutions. And I think that became clear when we talked to, for instance, we talked to this volunteer group called Rena Mälaren, who cleans the waters of Stockholm by diving and picking up the rubbish. And they sort of told us about how they work with the municipality and how the municipality actually reacts and helps them in this process. But maybe it's not always that fast for them and such. But and then we also talked to Mia Förvaltningens chief, his name is Juha Salonsari, and he also seems like a very engaged person in terms of working for the environment in Stockholm. And I think it's become clear that we definitely have the possibility to sort of work with the municipality. It's just a matter of being creative and actually proposing something, which is something that is not always easy for them to do themselves. So we have to come up with these projects and do it. And yeah.
Exactly, because I think this is our mission, to find these smart and sustainable solutions as architects, right?
Yeah, I think so as well, right?
Yeah. What do you think, Marvin?
I couldn't agree more. It's exactly that.
And Marvin, how has this course affected you?
I mean, I've usually been more focused on buildings. So this whole urban scale have been something that I've sort of, I guess you could say, avoided. And it really opened my eyes to see some of the problems I'm not normally thinking about. and you sort of get angry at sometimes where you see like how slow things move forward sometimes, and you sort of just wanted to go faster, but you have to realize also that it's always the the budget and all those things that control the speed of all of these proposed projects. It's not that we don't have any solutions. It's just that the time for the solutions to actually be tested, and I really think that we need to find a way to speed those things up a bit.
Yeah. And what has been the biggest lesson for you?
The biggest lesson, I think, and this even started in actually third year even, and have sort of been just getting stronger and stronger as this year have gone on as well, and that's the whole, like our whole stormwater problem. I've sort of been interested in the stormwater issue before, and I really think that instead of just dealing with it with just a well the ground, you can just actually do something with those participants that you don't normally associate with a nice place to be at or anything. Like you could really incorporate those things and make that a visitable and a nice place. And yeah, I think that's the biggest one.
Yeah, very interesting. How about you, Torbjrn? Like, how has this course affected you?
I mean, to me, it's been extremely educational. It's, I mean, it's something that we don't get into much when we study architecture. Is this, the environments around, surrounding the projects and the urban and the nature. So, I mean, to me, sort of almost everything has been new all of the time. It's been such a overload of information. So it's been super nice, I think. And yeah.
And what has been the biggest lesson you learned?
I think the biggest lesson is probably that we tend to see the urban environment as something that is apart from nature, something that we almost wedge into this natural environment. And like looking at this now, I feel sort of more that we are actually another cog in the natural environment only. We're sort of slotting into this ecosystem. When we build buildings, the nature around it reacts to it. We create different torrent ways or different ways of flooding the environment because of that. And and we of course react to nature as well. So I think it's dividing it like that, the urban and nature is not something I don't want that mindset anymore, I think.
Exactly, and this is actually what we count on when you graduate also, that you will push this, that it shouldn't be separated. Like these are one, like nature and the urban areas. So I'm really happy to hear that. And before we finish this great episode, I would love each one of you give the listener one takeaway message. We can start with you, Torbjrn.
Yeah. Well, I would like to say that, it's become clear during this course that we have a lot more, we have a lot more power to influence, I think, than maybe you realize when you are a student. We've seen lecturers talk about their project being realized 10 years after they've done it, a project that's been drawn in Hong Kong, for instance, and that's really inspirational, I think. So, don't feel that it's just a paper project when you're a student of architecture.
Super interesting. And Marvin, one takeaway message to the listener.
Sure. I can ramble on about this, but just consider what you do and what you buy, and try and source things locally, if at all possible. I'm not saying do it all the time, but do it most of the time, and it can really make a difference.
Great. Thank you so much again for being here. I'm really happy to talk to you. Thank you so much and good job.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. You learned something new and also got inspired by the guest. Don't forget to share the episode on your social media and recommend it to people you think they are really interested in this topic. Thank you so much again for giving your valuable time to Urbanistica podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif. Keep up the good work. Keep loving cities.